Today, Kasoma Farouk of Uganda is going to discuss a great man called Benito Mussolini. So we need to understand the key aspects that influenced the rise of Benito Mussolini. I can tell you, Mussolini took political power in Italy in 1922, where I can say he rose up against the government of Emmanuel III. I can tell you, Emmanuel III failed to solve people's problems. That's why the Italians were accepting to support only one man called Benito Mussolini. So Mussolini brought a political philosophy called fascism, where he was against communism. He was against what? Communism. So by this time, the capitalists who had money, who feared to lose their property to communism, had to support a man called Benito Mussolini. So he took political power in 1922. But our discussion today, what were the factors that influenced the rise of a man called Benito Mussolini? So we need to understand, number one, the Versailles Peace Treaty of 1919. I can say that diplomats at Versailles were unfair on a country called what? Italy. Because the diplomats at Versailles were unfair on a country called Italy, because Italy sided on the side of Triple Entente, expecting great territories, but it was given poor what? Territories. So by this time, Mussolini preached against the Versailles Peace Treaty, and this made the Italians to support Benito Mussolini because he was against the Versailles Peace Treaty of 1919. Another one, the effects of World War I. We believe by this time, World War I led to the economic problems in Italy. And Mussolini, many people are unemployed. Mussolini convinced the people that he was the only man who was going to solve all of their economic what? Problems. That's why by this time, they had to support a man called Benito Mussolini. Very famous. Another one, another key factor, we are saying the fear of communism. The capitalists who had the money feared communism, because in a communist state, all properties belong to the government, and the government has to look after the people. So the capitalists feared to lose their properties to communism. By this time, they were willing to support a man called Benito Mussolini. So by this time, because the capitalists feared communism, they supported Mussolini's political philosophy called what? Fascism. Another one, the cause for which fascism stood for. We are saying today, the fascism spoke about restoring the greatness of a country called what? Italy. As the fascism spoke about restoring the greatness of a country called Italy, the Italians were willing to support the fascism, because by this time, they wanted Italy to be a very great what? Country. Another one, the frustrated nationalism. The frustrated what? Nationalism. Frustrated nationalism. I can say frustrated nationalism means that the Italians were frustrated, the Italians in this kind of arrangement did not get what they expected. The Italians did not get what they wanted. So frustrated means that the Italians did not get what they wanted. So by this time, the frustrated nationalism in Italy, by this time, made the Italians, they did not get the colonies. They did not get the what? The colonies. They expected to get the colonies, but they did not get the what? The colonies. And by this time, let me first explain. By this time, the frustrated nationalism in Italy made the Italians to support only one man, and that man was Benito Mussolini. Then the disappointment arising from the Versailles Peace Treaty of 1919. So let me first explain. The disappointment arising from the Versailles Peace Treaty, we believe by this time, the Italians were disappointed from the Versailles Peace Treaty of 1919. What happened in this kind of arrangement? Because Italy was promised territories, but Italy did not get the what? The territories. As the Italians did not get the territories in this kind of arrangement, Mussolini promised to turn against the Versailles Peace Treaty of 1919. Then the effects of World War I on Italy. You remember we said World War I on Italy humiliated the Italians. They expected to get colonies after World War I, but the Italians did not get the what? The colonies. In this kind of arrangement, it is this that made the Italians to support a man called Benito Mussolini. Then the failure of the parliamentary system of government in Italy. We believe by this time the parliamentary system of government in Italy in this kind of arrangement failed to make the fascists to get few seats in parliament. Where the fascists got so many seats in where? In parliament. Because the fascists got so many seats in parliament, it is this that made the fascists to get political what? Power. Because they had more seats in the what? In the parliament. Then the civil unrest in Italy. It is said in Italy, there was what you call a civil unrest, strikes, riots. People are rising up every time because of the economic problems in Italy. So we are saying the civil unrest in Italy, because the country was not stable, every time people are rising up, it is this that was capitalized on by Benito Mussolini to campaign for himself to get political what? Power. Because he promised to solve the problems that were in a country called what? Italy. Another one, the personality of Benito Mussolini. We are saying today the civil unrest in Italy, then the personality, we have looked at that. Then the role of the black shirts. The role of the black what? Shirts. Black shirts. It was a group of Mussolini's youth. And by this time, Mussolini was using the black shirts to threaten all of those people that were not supporting Mussolini, that if you don't support Mussolini, we kill you. So by this time, the black shirts, it was a youth group of Mussolini, which was used to threaten all of those who were not supporting Mussolini. And this led to his rise to power. Then the failure of other opposition groups to unite against the fascists. So we are saying today, the opposition groups failed to unite against the fascists. As the opposition groups failed to unite against the fascists, this made the fascists to have an upper hand in a country called what? Italy. Because it had more supporters than other groups of people. And this led to the rise of Mussolini. Yes. Then the weakness of Prime Minister Orlando. I can tell you today, Prime Minister Orlando was very weak. He failed to solve the hard problems of the time, like unemployment, poverty, and Mussolini capitalized on this to campaign for him what? For himself. Then the weakness of Emmanuel III. We believe by this time, Emmanuel III was a very weak man. He failed to solve unemployment, poverty. Mussolini capitalized on those problems to convince the Italians that he was the only man to solve the what? The problems. Then Hegel's philosophy.